City of Stevens Point Tourism Commission meeting, recorded March 27, 2025.
All right, roll call. Shows everybody's here, so we're good on that. All right, item number 2, approval of the February 26th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I gotta write this down. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 3, grant guideline updates for future grant cycles. So as you all remember, back in, when we talked about this, the issue was to take, talk about conventions and funding possible with that. So I guess I'll open it up to discussion where Amy Boston's gonna join us eventually.
Yeah, she should be here any minute. She's already at the hotel.
So I guess somebody wants to start it and see
So-
what we, go ahead.
Okay, so the bottom line is we try to give money to groups to increase the tax dollars that we even get back from them. Okay, nonprofit. The CVB's money has been cut numerous times, especially due to COVID. You know, we were down for 3 years on room tax. We have allowed a group to come in now that is for-profit technically, and we gave them half of what they were asking for because they are going to bring in a group that is going to be very large for the whole city, only our city, and make more tax dollars, which makes more money into the fund. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've already kind of sidelined the guide rules, but is there something that we can do to, the bottom line is, this group, we should be bringing in more groups so we get more tax dollars, so that we can
Give more.
so we can give more.
Right.
And we're stopping.
What's the role of the CVB now? I mean, a question that I have is Convention and Visitors Bureau and we're tourism.
Can we just put her up here? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy, can you just come up here so you'll have a mic? We're pretty open right now.
I'm confused with what the CVB does now.
Okay, so Amy Boston is here, and she is the chair of the board of the CVB. So,
Let me ask a few more questions if I can.
okay.
When the CVB lost Plover,
Correct.
my understanding they had 5 employees.
Correct.
They still have 5 employees, but they lost a third of their business, a third of their what they had to do.
Oh, I can answer.
So my question is, where did the CVB get lost in this thing where they don't do that anymore and now we're expected to?
Well, it's not that we're expected to, and I'm going to answer this one. So, they have 5 employees. They were short then, they needed more. So they just didn't fill that. And when you're down, they're trying to do more selling and marketing to bring more people in. So it's not like when you've got a business, and Mike, you know this from when you're down, you need more staff so that you can bring in more business.
And the CVB wasn't technically, they didn't technically lose a third of their revenue from Plover because Plover only had 3 hotels. Not the village and the town. It was only the village, which was the Comfort, American, and Hampton.
Okay, the last question, and then somebody else can ask something. I've asked this before. CVB sold that building, $600 and some thousand. That money is in an account somewhere. generating some sort of income. What have they thought about using some of that until they get reestablished? My concern is that, again, it's the CVB and work tourism. And I understand that we're bringing people into town, but I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who has done tons of conventions and meetings, and their average profit from a convention was $30,000 to $45,000. That's the income they made. And while I don't hold anything wrong with people making money, I don't know that I have a problem saying to somebody, here's $15,000, and really all we're doing is stacking onto their income. I would be willing to talk about giving a grant to a group that's going after a convention, and they have expenses to get that group in here. But once that group comes, and I don't know that I want to, I also worry about getting deluged with requests every other week that, hey, we got another convention, we need another $15,000 or another $10,000. That's what I worry about.
So, Mike, you and I have sat on a couple things together.
Yeah.
So let's just take ASA. So when I was with Colorado, we would come to the city, we as a city would come and bid to get tournaments and bring them in, which would increase the tax dollars.
Right.
Okay, so that's one of the things that currently the CVB, and I know my own hotel, we don't do anymore because we don't have the funds. But how about the groups that we do have that are now leaving? So I went through just for the month of February yesterday, and I had 3 large groups and 3 medium-sized groups that left Stevens Point and moved to other cities because those other cities are giving them more benefits than we are.
Are they other cities in Wisconsin?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Every single one of them.
What are the benefits they give them? It seems to me, when I talk to this gentleman, nobody from the CVB or the city where they hold their conventions, and they hold 2 a year, wrote them a check and said, here's some money. What they did was they worked to reduce their costs. Free conference rooms, free meeting rooms, free rooms for executives, that sort of thing. I just think that I don't know. I got some problems with some of the stuff they're doing. And when we talked about ASA, as you know, I've been involved in getting those things. And Tom, you recall when we got our first national tournament, we went to the tourism committee back then, and I don't recall what it was called. And we were awarded $10,000 in expenses to go get the tournament. That's how we got our 7 or 8 people to I think it was in Anaheim, to bring that tournament in. So again, I don't know if I want to write a check out to the Acme Convention Company because they got a big convention coming.
No.
Now maybe we can work with the group that goes after the Acme Convention.
So there are 2 sides of that. Yeah, one way is one of the things we talked about. We need to bring in, but in Colorado, I think I'm the only one who's done hotels in another state. So in Colorado, they never gave you money just to move. But Appleton, literally, we had snowmobilers here for numerous years before I was here. I want to say they were here for almost 20 years. Appleton gave them $10,000. They left. I didn't see it in Colorado, but I do see it here happening.
It's similar to the pay-to-play program when it comes to sports.
Yep.
How many conventions would you be talking about? Again, I mean, you guys could go out and recruit a whole bunch of places and have 15 of them on the line, and where do you say, hold it a minute? You know, we can't, we'll pick you, but we can't pick you. Maybe there's some guidelines that we say the maximum we're going to do is $2,500.
Isn't what we're need to set some guidelines?
Right, we would have to set guidelines.
Yeah.
I guess I was looking at, I just threw some guidelines down, and again, and we debate, is it a new convention or is it a ongoing convention?
Ongoing, right.
That would have to be.
Or a certain amount of
Rooms.
heads and beds, correct?
Right. The size would depend. I would also say we would only fund, I guess, for-profit conventions, because when you start bringing in, let's say the Fires Association, there's no room, we don't get any room tax from that.
Correct, because they're tax exempt.
So that would be another
Correct.
one I don't think we should help fund now because of.
Completely agree.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess I would also like to see if we're going to fund something, that the CVB match our funding up to a dollar amount. Let's say we're going to fund a new convention up to $2,000, $3,000, and then the CVB matches that $2,000 to $3,000.
Their current budget, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's no way that,
But I know with their, looking at the financials from the last 2 years, you've gone from like the city's portion to you from 400,000 to almost 500,000 or 600,000.
And that goes back to his point of pulling from our reserves. We are pulling from, not necessarily the income from selling the building, but we are supplementing our overall budget from when Plover pulled out. We're supplementing that, the 100,000 from the city, but also from our own reserve funds.
So you're saying the new money in the last 3 years, you've gone from 400 to 600, that $200,000 increase? You're still
Room tax
in
has
that.
increased
Yeah.
the amount that we're getting from the city
Yeah.
has increased in 23 and 24.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say exponentially
Right.
with the Home 2 and the Inn at Century, but it's noticed.
Right,
It's noticed,
right.
those 2 additional hotels. But we are, and I could get the numbers, probably
Yeah.
not until Megan comes back from maternity leave, but in 23, it was like 175, 24, 150, and then in 25, it's 100 or 75,000 that we're supplementing from reserves
from reserves.
to keep at that 600,000 amount.
Right, okay.
And then of the 100,000 that the city did give, 25 of that went back to the study for the Mid-State building, not the Mid-State building, excuse me, the
Convention center.
Great Lakes building downtown.
So, yeah, that's the way I would look at it. So both organizations have some skin in the game here. Otherwise, for
Yeah.
us, our pot of money is going to be depleted faster and faster too, and it's, that's the way I would, that's some of the guidelines I'd like to see if we're talking about guidelines.
Yeah, I would agree, especially when it comes to tax exempt groups. I would also potentially, maybe not a guideline, but something that benefits more than just one hotel. Again, I'm chair of the CVB, but I also manage the Holiday Inn, so I have to
We
try
want the
to
whole
stay
city.
neutral.
No, we
But
want the
if
city.
we could do that's advantageous for multiple properties, I don't know how that could be a guideline, because if it's 100 room
It's on the
group,
side. I was
Like
thinking size.
a size or a sliding scale or something, if you could get pickleball at Century World, and then this organization and the CVB cover the cost of shuttling to and from Century World, because they can't house all of the players at the end. Something like that where it's specific to the group too. 2,000, 4,000, whatever that may be, but it is to offset a cost.
And part of the problem with having large groups is we don't have transportation
Yeah.
in the city. That's why we don't get a lot of them. Most definitely not tax exempt groups.
Right.
Because we want groups that'll give us more dollars.
Right.
All right, so we're looking at new conventions only.
So is a new convention something that hasn't been here in 5 years or doesn't usually hit here? So I have groups that move here every 5 years.
Okay.
I'm trying to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that would be fair, 5 years.
Usually groups move every 3. So,
And tax exempt.
because they're not bringing tax
Correct.
dollars. And then they write for grants anyways.
I agree with Tom as far as the view. I would like to see you guys somehow get involved in it. I don't know if somehow you can work into it, even if it's, $10,000 or something. I think as far as on our end, I mean, we're willing to put something in and, like say, start on the small end. And you're saying Appleton or somebody gives, what, approximately 10,000
They
or
give
something?
10,000. We
Did
do have-
they actually write him a check for 10 grand?
Yeah, they
Or did
actually
they
wrote
get
him a check for
benefit?
10 grand. I lost them 2013 or 14, and they're coming back this year. I still call them every year.
I mean, that giving is nothing new. I remember when the Harley Convention wanted to come, they wanted 90 grand, I think it was. So, I mean, this is nothing new in Wisconsin for
Yeah.
these
Right.
people.
In Colorado, I'd never seen it.
Yeah.
So when I moved here inside, I also think that we should have put something in there such as what Mike was talking about, going after new conventions. But that is a risk because, you don't get everything you go after.
Right.
If I do 10 sales calls, I only get one good one.
See, I would much rather go for new conventions. Because I know being on the Parks and Rec Association, every other year is in Green Bay, and then every other year they rotate, and it depends on size, so. And I know being on the board, they make tons of money off the convention. I mean, that's what subsidizes the association, so.
So in other words, we have to spend money to get money,
Correct.
which,
is,
But isn't
just
that-
overall spend money to make money.
In life. But isn't that what we did with Red Cap coming in?
yes.
Even though it was signed, that was a one-off. But helping with the freezers, and so the parks could take care of the incoming tournaments and the locals. We spent money to make money.
Right.
Same thing.
I think we just need to be careful how much we spend in return.
Oh, I agree.
Give 10 grand, I don't know if they'd ever get the room tax back for that.
Right.
Well, over and again, snowmobilers, if they left you in 15, they stayed in Appleton or elsewhere for 10 years, and I'm assuming they stayed in Appleton.
Yep, they did.
So did they get 10 grand per year, or did they get 10 grand the first year to move?
They got 10 grand the first year and the second year, and then it went down and down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have to be cautious of,
And I also say that
Yeah,
we
tight.
only, so currently, how much do we have in the fund? Approximately, you're fine.
You have the,
I don't have it
Mike.
on mine.
I don't have it. I think it's like 350,000.
yeah, closer to 4.
Okay, and we got like 5 for this year, correct?
Yes.
So I do believe what the CVB is doing and making sure they have reserves. Can't we set that we never go below a certain amount with
Yeah,
giving?
so we know that we're not going to deplete it because
Correct.
by the time we know that once we get to that certain point,
Well,
that's when
Yep.
we.
why don't we treat this like we would any other group coming before us? I just don't want to say the CVB has carte blanche for 2,500 or 3,000 or 5,000. They still have to complete a grant application.
Correct.
They still have to give us financial information.
Well, I think the groups would do not the CVB.
well, no, the group wouldn't do it because the CVB and yourself or something, let's say you're going after it, so that group, Stevens
a group
Point
yet.
is the same as Eau Claire, as La Crosse. So the CVB has to do the research to say, we want Acme Company to come to Stevens Point instead of La Crosse. So we're going to their headquarters, and that's what this organization and the CVB both put in $1,000 to pitch it. But we can't be asking for financials from
No, I think
a
that's-
for-profit
No.
entity.
I think
No.
that's one
No,
part of it.
I think it's the CVB that fills out the application.
Yeah.
And you're the one who puts your budget together.
and says.
And you're the one who tells us why you need it, like we do anybody else. I mean, there's been a couple of groups who've come before us without any application. We just gave them money. We know who those guys are. But I think we need it. I'd like to see an application.
I agree.
I just don't, I worry about us becoming the financial backer of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, who I guess this year, between 2022 and 2025, increased their income from room tax by almost $100,000, if I'm looking at these numbers correctly. But we know that they have a bunch of money, and this is just me talking, we know they have a bunch of money in their bank account on that building sale, and I have no idea why they don't tell anybody what it is and why they're saving their money. And I don't know what their reserves are. If you're drawing from your reserves, how big are your reserves? How long can you draw from that? Are we in fact end up funding your reserves by doing this? And I'm not against doing it, but we got to have some tougher guidelines here. And I'm worried about of us getting in the next year 10 applications because we're going after 10 different groups.
I wish we had 10 different groups.
That's my concern. And we have some rather big projects coming up in Stevens Point that we're going to see people come in front of us for.
I think that's one side of it, is the CVB. I think it's also the for-profit groups that want to come here.
So the guidelines have to be set not only for maybe two different sets of guidelines.
Correct.
This is for going
Right.
after business to assist
Correct.
the CVB. And then the other is snowmobilers want to come back to Stevens Point. So, they get word of this opportunity and they appeal.
Or we, correct, or we, that's why we're doing this so open. We figure out, and we're all here in tourism at one point or another, what we don't do well. So let's just say transportation, because we all know we don't have it in this city. And that's what we help fund. Does that make sense?
I don't think we'd have enough money to fund transportation. Oh, listen.
But offset.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to come up with some that will help us to help the city spend more money to make more money.
Now,
I agree. I think that we have a start on this project. It seems to me that
Just to
there's
start.
still a lot of questions that has to be answered. John, with all due respect, I don't know that I want to make a decision on it today. I don't know if I want to set guidelines today. I think we need to meet and talk it over more.
Right, that's what this was for. We
I
gave
would-
an hour.
I would like to know what the Convention and Visitors Bureau, how much they have into this thing. And if I'm off base, somebody tell me. I'd like to know how much their reserves are. I'd like to know what we're dealing with. Our finances are here on this sheet in front of for everybody to see. But we're dealing, I think, with some big projects here, and I don't think we're getting the whole view.
And on the CVB side, and I'll just speak for them,
yeah.
they don't know that you're having these conversations.
Right.
No.
So they haven't had the
Yeah,
chance
so
to.
we
No
do
idea.
need to, even though
Yeah.
you need to explain this to us and you needed to explain that to us, it's not that they won't. We, as a commission, and I'll include myself with this advisory, we haven't asked them for that information.
Right.
No.
I can tell you what I know and but Carrie and I remember from reviewing the budgets
Right.
the last couple of years. But Megan and the team haven't said we will or we won't work with.
They don't
the
know
commission.
about it.
Right.
They don't even know about
There's a
it.
very good chance that they would want to work with us in some fashion, but I think that we need to maybe have a meeting with.
Well, that's why we need to come up with the
Yeah.
guidelines, though, to even see if we were willing to consider all
Right,
this.
right.
So everyone's jumping where we just need to, do we even want to do this? Do we want to help more, do we want to spend, bottom line, do we want to spend more money to bring more money into the city? We do have
That is
extra
our
money.
purpose.
That is our purpose, heads and beds, not tax exempt, but to raise the tax dollars.
Yep.
Do you think you're right, you go back to the Convention and Visitors Bureau and talk what we talked about. Are they willing to match what we put in? Are they willing to, then we have to come back again and move forward from there.
That seems like a reasonable idea.
Because it's, and I don't want to get into finances, but it's really easy to say we don't have money because you have different priorities. You have X
Exactly.
numbers of dollars, so is priorities doing what you're doing now, or is it more of a priority to bring conventions in and you have to change your priorities? That would be a decision your board would have to make on priorities. Because we hear that so often. I did when I worked for the government, other cities, well, we can't afford it. Well,
It's
you
not
brag about your low
affordability,
taxes.
it's about priority.
Right. It's priorities. So
Yeah.
that's when your board's going to have to decide, is this something, a priority you'd like to help fund?
Yeah.
If not, then we have to decide as a board, do we want to get involved if they don't want to fund it?
Yeah.
So-
So I guess, Amy, you want to go to your board and
Yeah, we have
That conversation.
we have an exec meeting, as well as a board
Board
meeting
meeting
within the
coming up.
month. It's at the end of April, but yeah, so
Okay.
it's going to be 2 months. But then again,
That's-
I think you guys are not necessarily
no,
looking at funding
No.
this summer. It's more
No,
looking
it's
towards
for
the
next-
26
yep, exactly.
Correct.
Correct. So we just need to start having conversations about it so that we know we can set up guidelines and make sure that we're prepared for December to come here.
And I guess also on your end, as well as if you want to participate, but also what are your guidelines that you would like, and then I guess we'll meet again at that time.
May.
Yeah.
And it gives us time to think, like, what other things,
What are some
pros
other-
and cons.
Yep.
All right.
Now, keep in mind, the pot of money we have, we were always hoping someday some big project would come that's a big attraction. That our pot could go fast.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
still
and that's
looking
why,
for that.
one of the things that I was saying is how much is there? What do we make up? We always keep this in there for our reserves. So, like 25 is really a good year for groups, for room nights. So we can figure out how much we're going to have, but how much do we always make sure we have in there? So that if a big project does come up, such as they open a big pickleball.
Yep, multi-purpose sports complex.
Correct. Which I've opened.
Okay. So I guess we will table that item and look at probably early May.
Yep.
Does that work?
I got to tell Dean, sorry, Dean, I didn't do this much, so I missed a little bit of admitting you, so I hope you didn't miss too much.
John, a quick question on my part. We're going to get together. Does it make sense for our tourism committee to meet, discuss this more before we meet with the CVB so that we can set up our guidelines and they'll have their guidelines?
Yeah, I
and we'll
think
see
that
if
would be
they
a
all
good idea.
match?
How about we even just see if the CVB is interested first,
Yeah, that's
though?
true.
Yeah.
Because then that's going to change the guidelines.
Yep.
They'll be interested.
That's just a conversation that, yes, they're interested or not.
That's a simple conversation
Yeah.
at our board meeting.
Are we looking at early May? Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mike can
think the
always
snow will
zoom
be
in.
gone by then, right?
Yeah.
We'll figure out where he is by then. Be in Europe.
All right, any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Being none, look for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.